Hello again, everyone. This is Sincere of Sincere's channel, and welcome. In this video, I'm going to talk about what I read this year in 2022 and what I would like to read next year in 2023, even though I don't know if I can actually reach my goal. I didn't reach my goal this year because it's been kind of a tough year with different responsibilities, but I still want to talk about what I read, and I'm going to use Goodreads.com to let you see what my goals were, and also the books that I read, and also what I'm currently reading. All right, so let's begin. Well, I want to apologize before we get started for my visuals previously. It's cloudy here today. It's dark, and I've been going from room to room trying to get the best lighting. Okay, so I'm really sorry. I don't have any high advanced technology. I don't have an iPhone. I don't have a Nikon camera, anything like that. I'm just using a Galaxy. So and I don't have any special lighting, anything like that. So once again, I want to apologize for the awful visuals. It looks fuzzy and everything, but you can see me. I decided to come out of my hole and show myself. But anyway, so I'm going to use Goodreads.com because this is a website that I use to keep track of what I'm reading, to look for books, to look at what other readers on my friends list are reading and their friends. And so Goodreads.com is a book cataloging service or a social cataloging service. It's connected to Amazon indirectly. And so it has really been a very useful tool for me to get me to set a goal for my reading each year. Okay, so this is 2022 reading challenge, and you'll see I'll show it to you later. Now I did other reading challenges. I think I opened an account on Goodreads probably around 2013 or 2014, but I didn't do any of the challenges until 2015. And so if you look over here on the right, you can actually see the challenges I did starting from 2015 up. 2015, I set a goal of 25 books, but I only read 20. So I didn't make it the first time I tried the Goodreads challenge. But the next year, I read 35 out of a goal of 30. 2017, I read 44 out of a goal of 35. 2018 was my banner year. I read 65 out of a goal of 45. Then the following year, 2019, I read 56 books out of 50 books. I completed in 2020 26. Well, my goal was 25, and I read one book over 26. And then last year, it started decaying again because we had my father died. There was so much I had to do. My father, with before his death, he was old, but it was a lot with his health problems, taking him to the doctor, all of that. So I just between working and trying to do other things, and to and help him, and all this, and to look out for my parents, I just wasn't able to reach my goal of 40 books. I only read 33. So this year, because still we're having the after effects of all of that, and then myself, I have some issues of also myself, some health issues. So I just wasn't able this year to reach my goal. So I set a minimum goal of 20 books. I felt like, okay, I can probably do 20, but I probably should have set a goal of 15. But and then I would have been able to make it. Now, I could possibly cheat and just change it today before the challenge ends, because this is December 31st. But I decided that I will just be honest and leave it the way it is. So I'm lacking 4 books. Now there are 2 books that I'm close to finishing, but I won't have them finished by midnight. It's not going to happen. But I'm going to show you my goal. I'm going to make it big here. So let's look at view all. Okay, and then this is the you can see you have read 16 of 20 books in 2022 or 2022, and so I'm going to open up the entire page. That's some of them. That's only how many is this? 10. So let's look at the rest of them on the list. Okay, so I'm going to make them big so you can see what I've read. I'm going to talk a little bit about each book. All right, so the first book here is the Paraplus of the Eritrean Sea. Okay, this is actually in the area of Eritrea, and what this old ancient book is, it's the travel and trade in the Indian Ocean by a merchant of the first century. So, the author is unknown, as some first century merchant wrote this book, and they were traveling. This merchant was traveling uh, along the coast of northeast Africa, around Egypt. The Eritrean Sea is probably in the area of the African country of Eritrea in East Africa. And so this merchant was going around and going through the Persian Gulf, coming back around, selling in the Indian Ocean, and he ended up eventually over in India. So this was just a record that some uh, um, ancient mariner did. Okay, um, so this book was originally written in Koine Greek. Okay, and it just shows the navigation and trading. They described a lot of different peoples in this area, in the area that they were traveling in. So it's rather interesting. It's rather interesting and unusual. All right, so let's go back and let's see this. The next book here on the list, let me make it bigger. Let me go. It's so slow. Goodreads can be a bit slow at times. The next book I read was The Sacred Writings of Gregory Nazianzen. Now, Gregory Nazianzen, or Saint Gregory Nazianzen, or Nazianzus, is also called Gregory the Theologian. And he was an early Christian saint and theologian. I think he was a bishop in Constantinople, which is now Istanbul, and he actually was born in Turkey. He was born in the region of Cappadocia, or the Turks say Cappadocia, and he is called one of the Cappadocian or Cappadocian fathers. He was a philosopher, and he did basically Christian philosophy. So he and Saint Basil the Great and Saint Gregory of Nyssa are the three Cappadocian fathers. So this was a book of some of his writings, his orations, and also some of his letters, and they were quite good. Okay. Okay. Next book I've read, and if I can get it up, I talked about this book in a previous video, so you can go back in my timeline. It's still up, and it's called How to Deal with Toxic People. This was a book written from a Christian perspective, but I think it's also a good book that anybody could read on how to deal with very difficult people in your life. Okay. The next book I read was a book called What Shall the Redeemed Wear? With study questions. So this is a book for Christians talking about what should Christian people wear? Should we wear anything? Should we wear revealing clothes? Should we follow the current fashion trends? What should we do? What does the Bible say about these things? Okay, so it was a pretty good book. All right, there is actually a dress code in Christianity, but a lot of people don't seem to know it. It's not just Islam. Also, Islam borrowed a lot of things from Christianity. All right. Daughters of Africa. This was an anthology edited by Margaret Busby. I think she might be Ghanaian, and this is a very thick book. It was like over 800 pages of stories, excerpts from novels, poetry, essays, and it was very good. I gave it 5 stars, and so it was. The book is actually over 1,000 pages. It's quite heavy, but the big bibliography section in the back is actually over 100 pages itself. So the actual reading portion is over 800 pages. So you had women in Africa or of African ancestry, their writings going back to ancient Egypt up to modern times. So it's a very good book. I actually found a novel, one of the excerpts from a novel. I liked it so much that I actually found the other book, and there's another one. I read an excerpt that I'm planning on reading. All right, let's go to the next. Now, Now, this book doesn't actually have some of the books on Goodreads, when they are posted, they don't have an actual cover. So whoever posted this book did not put a cover on it. But this is a historical, this is a biography. I read more fiction this year than I did nonfiction, but this is a biography of the Empress Athene Eudocia. She was a queen in the not a queen, but an empress in the Byzantine Empire. In a previous video I did, I talked about, if you saw it, I talked about the two books from the Theodosian Women series. Well, actually, she is a character in the book because she is married in the book, and book two talks about also her marriage to Emperor Theodosius. Now, the second book, which is, and this is in the book, Dawn Empress, which is about Emperor Theodosius' sister, big sister, Saint Pulcheria. She's a Christian saint. But Emperor Athene Eudocia was actually his wife. So she was Pulcheria's sister-in-law. So this is a biography by her, about her, not by her. She was quite a remarkable woman, very beautiful, not only very beautiful, but very smart and intellectual. She grew up in Athens, Greece. Her father was a philosopher. He educated her. Some sources say she may have actually been born in Antakya and Antioch, which is Antakya, Turkey. But the general sources that I've seen says she was born in Athens, Greece. All right, let's go to the next. Okay, so no cover on that one. Okay, the next is actually a manga. Okay, this is a Japanese manga from the Oku, the Interchamber series, book 13 or volume 13. Now, I've been reading the Oku series for now about 3 years. Okay, there are 17 books in all, so I'm getting close to finishing all of them. I have to buy each one. But Oku is set in, and it's an alternative history of Japan. And what this is about, there's a plague that hits Japan about 300 years ago, and the plague attacks only young men. So it kills out about a third of the men, I think, mostly young men, kills out the boys and the young men. So so the society is so fractured by this epidemic that attacks young men, that there are not enough men in the society. So the women have to take over all the male roles. They have to become the shogun. They take on the male roles only temporarily, though. The plan is only temporarily. So this goes on. They become the shogun. A lot of the books focus on the various shoguns. The shogun in Japan was the chief military leader of the country. So the women take on all the roles of the men. Okay, they have to protect the men. So what they do is, particularly with the shogun, the harem is made up of only men. So it's reverse. Usually a harem is made up of like a sultan or a king or a ruler, but actually in this case the shogun is a woman, and the harem is made up of the most beautiful and the most handsome and intelligent men in the country. Okay, so it talks about the different shoguns, and the artwork is absolutely amazing. Now the book is really more for older teenagers. I'd say more for adults, more than just for young children. But yeah, it's a very interesting take on what happens to a society that is hit hard by an epidemic and loses a big percentage of its male population. Okay, the next book, also another manga. Um, There are some Japanese writers um, that actually take Harlequin romances. They're Japanese manga artists, and they take Harlequin romances and redo them as manga. This was called Lost to the Desert Warrior, which was a Harlequin romance. And this story is about Princess Layla, whose tyrannical father, okay, dies, and she goes and seeks protection from Prince Raz, I believe. Yeah, Sheikh Raz. Okay, so the characters are Arabs, and she agrees. She asked him for protection. She actually asked him to marry her to protect her. So this is what happens with that. Quite an interesting and unusual little story. Um, The next is let's click on the next book. I did a reread of George Orwell's 1984 this year. I had to read 1984 in high school. I think 11th grade. I had to read it, 11th or 12th grade. And so I decided this year to do a reread of George Orwell's dystopian novel 1984. So I think there was a movie made about it several years ago. And so, yeah, so the 1984 and a very cold, hard future. Okay, it's set. All right, so it's a classic modern novel. Let's go to the next book. Okay, I talked to you about Dawn Empress, a novel of Imperial Rome. You can go back and check my video about two novel about two tough and stubborn women. I think that's the title. So this one was book 2 of the Theodosian Women, and so I talked about that. So if you want to learn more about that book, you can go back and look at that video from last week, I believe. All right, the next book I read is also a part of a series. It is also fiction. It's called Dog Star Rising. It's part of the Makana series. Now, Makana is a Sudanese detective, and he lives in exile in Cairo, Egypt. So I've only read the first two books. The author is named Parker Bilal. I think his this is his pen name. His real name is Jamal Majub. I think he is part Sudanese and part British. And so in this book, it talks about Makana is trying to solve a murder in the Coptic, the Orthodox, the Coptic community in Cairo. So I hope to continue the series. I think there's about 8 or 9 books in that series. I don't read a lot of detective novels. I would like to read. I've read a couple of Agatha Christie books in the past. On Goodreads, some of my Goodreads friends on my friends list, some of them are huge fans of Agatha Christie, particularly Goodreads friends that live in the Middle East. All right. So instead of reading your standard, you know, detective novel, I said, hey, this is great. A Sudanese detective. Okay. The next book on my list that I read this year, if I can get it to open, is Gravel Heart. Now, Gravel Heart is written by Abdul Razak Gurna, and he actually won the Nobel Prize in Literature last year. He was born in Tanzania. On the island of Zanzibar. He is of Arab ancestry. And so when the revolution in Zanzibar broke out in the early 1960s, he and his family fled to England. So he is an academic, and he also writes novels. And Gravelheart, I liked his writing style, but I got tired of the characters because I felt like the main character, Salim, he just got to be very aimless and like he just didn't have any direction in his life. And I just, he seemed to be a very weak character. And I think I understand what Gurner was trying to do with the book, that he was trying to show this is what happens when people are damaged by their circumstances. Because Salim's parents, his father, ended up leaving his mother and sort of becoming mentally disturbed, very depressed. And Salim didn't understand why his father actually left his mother. Why did he just leave? And their family seemed to be okay, and then suddenly he leaves, and then he finds out the dark secret of why his father actually left his family. So Salim ends up going to England, and his uncle pays his way, and his uncle wants him to make something of himself, go to university, and instead he just sort of throws everything away. So but the writing, I think, is actually beautiful, but after a while just couldn't really sympathize with the characters. All right, but good writing nonetheless. All right, so let's go over to the next. Dune Messiah is book 2 in the Dune series by Frank Herbert. This is classic sci-fi book, considered the greatest sci-fi series of all times. So I read book 1 with one of my Turkish students. I had a private Turkish student. I taught her since she was age of 10, and I taught her up until last year when she turned 17. But we read Dune together. Yeah, she had her level of English was very good because she started learning English when she was 4 years old. Okay. And she also likes sci-fi. So I said, oh, why don't we read Dune together? All right. So next book on the list is Twilight Empress. I mentioned this in the previous video. Oh, I lost my place. Sorry about that. But yeah, when I did the video on the stubborn and tough women, 2 videos ago, I talked about this book about Placidia, who was the wife, the daughter of, not the daughter of, I'm sorry, but the sister of Emperor Honorius, who was a complete loser as an emperor. And and about her life, basically being a hostage of the Visigoths, and how all that all evolved and turned out. All right. Next, I only read 2 nonfiction this year. This was the second nonfiction, Zanzibar Revolution and its Aftermath. The author is Anthony Clayton. He's a British author, and this talked about the revolution that happened on the island of Zanzibar, which is part of Tanzania, back in the 1960s. There was an uprising of the African population against the Arab and Indian population on the island, and the Arab and Indian population were driven out of Zanzibar. So yeah, it's a long story, but yeah, if you want to read it, you can actually read it on Internet Archive as well. You can set up an account and then you can check it out on the website. And then last but not least, if you hear background noise, it's one of those loud cars that likes to come through here. Okay, last but not least, I lost my page again. Is With All My Heart, which is a historical novel about the wife of King Charles II of England. She was the Princess Catherine of Braganza. She was a Portuguese princess. And Charles, and the reason why we have King Charles III, some people might be saying, why is there's a King Charles III? Because there was a King Charles I who was actually executed back in the 1600s, and then his son was King Charles II. They were a part of the House of Stuart in England. So King Charles II, this is about his wife, Catherine of Braganza, who was a Portuguese princess. She was basically shipped over to England, married him, fell in love with him, but he was not faithful to her. He was very unfaithful. He treated her with respect according to his ability, but he was just a man that just could not control his sexual appetite. So so this was an interesting book. This is about the long-suffering wife. Back then they couldn't just go and get a divorce and and stuff. They had to just hang in there, and stuff. The church wasn't going to allow it. She was a Catholic anyway, so it was not going to happen. So this is about her life with King Charles II, the Merry Monarch, as they called him. All right, well, I'm going to end the video here because I don't like to do incredibly long videos, considering that I'm a novice at YouTube. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and maybe this will pique your interest about using Goodreads.com to help to encourage you to read, because doing the Goodreads challenge has really put me on track of reading, reading books, instead of just, having a goal, setting a goal for myself, and knowing, okay, I've set this goal for this year, and I'm going to try to meet that goal. So I find it very useful that for that reason, along with, just about, I guess, every book that's ever been published is likely on Goodreads. So, well, I can't exactly say that, of course. There are some books that have disappeared, but anyway, I'm deviating, so please excuse me. But yeah, and once again, I want to apologize for my visuals today because, as I said, the weather is cloudy here, and I just could not get the right lighting. So once again, I want to apologize for that. So yeah, but thanks again for viewing my channel, and I really much appreciate it. And so this is Sincere. Until next time.